Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, and this is your Cannabis Business Podcast. Today, we're here live at the World Trade Center in Seattle. We're going to be talking about everything that is edibles today. It's day one at HempFest. I've got some amazing guests, starting with Dan Devlin of Zoots. Dan is a co-founder of Zoots, maker of a handcrafted small batch treat made with premium infused cannabis paired with unique blends tailored to your interests, desires, and intentions. Their zootologists carefully extract the essential oil of the cannabis plant in a contaminant-free environment using their proprietary cypress extraction method. The closed-loop process captures THC using organic cane alcohol and a cold fusion process, so you can be assured that each serving is consistent. And while everyone experiences cannabis individually, Zoots is about having a good time without feeling uncomfortably stoned, which is what sets Zoots apart as a purveyor of fine cannabis edibles. And Zoots was recently acquired by Washington-based Ionic Brands for a total of $11.6 million. Ionic, with a market cap of about $16.5 million, trades on the Canadian Securities Exchange as IONC and on the over-the-counter OTC markets as IONKF. Dan, thanks for being here.
You bet. Glad to be.
Remotely with us is Bob Eschino with Incredibles. Bob is co-founder and president of Medically Correct, whose trusted brand, Incredibles, is known for having the most consistent and award-winning infused products in the cannabis industry. Bob is responsible for the company's sales, marketing, and national expansion. As founding member of the Edibles Council through Cannabis Business Alliance, the Colorado Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, and the Colorado Cannabis Manufacturers Association, Bob has helped shape the next wave of cannabis rules and regulations for the cannabis industry federal level. Medically Correct prides itself on helping educate the public about responsible edible consumption and the emerging cannabis industry. Bob, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And also remotely is Patrick Ian Moore of Edible Magazine. Patrick's the editor-in-chief of Edibles Magazine and the chief operations officer of Edibles List Manufacturing and Distribution. He started out as head dispatch at Speedweed and went from there to be working as a product development and marketing specialist at W Vapes. The edibleslist.com is a source for information and reviews on medical marijuana edibles, dispensaries, doctors, and all else in the legal cannabis community. Edibles Magazine is a source for credible and relevant news with everything related to the cannabis industry. Their mission is to help medical marijuana patients locate smokeless medication alternatives. They want to help get the medicine in the hands of the patients they need it. They connect patients, vendors, and dispensaries, and patients can now save time and money locating their favorite edibles and new consumable products while being able to rate and review, adding their valued option to our online community. Staying tuned for their best of Edibles List awards, and stay tuned for the topicals, tinctures, and other awards that they have. So Patrick Ian Moore, thanks for being with us.
Oh, thank you so much.
So the industry is new. It's incredibly volatile. It's hard to nail down. You know, the moment you think you can start focusing on one thing, some crazy regulations come out of nowhere. And with that, Dan, I'm wondering about what advice you can give to companies in emerging cannabis markets on how to prepare for a volatile regulatory environment. Just this last fall in Washington State, our regulatory authority, the Liquor and Cannabis Board, tried to implement rule changes that would have affected over 70% of the edibles market by changing the shapes and colors of the edibles. And so that would have resulted in a higher compliance cost, probably lost market share, and they claimed that it was for the children. And that's the same regulatory authority that has pink bubblegum vodka. So it's frustrating.
Hypocrisy at its finest.
Right. That is hypocrisy at its finest, Bob. So Dan, what advice can you give to companies in emerging cannabis markets on how to prepare for a volatile regulatory environment?
Well, number one is you have to be able or be prepared to turn on a dime and adjust. I think, my view might be tainted because I am from Washington. Bob's from Colorado, the first state to legalize. We're the second state. So we've gone through tremendous gyrations where the pendulum is obviously to the regulatory side and not even close to being a industry and regulatory combination. A couple of points I think I'd make is that number one is keep in mind as many of the legislatures in your state are not your friend. They do not want this to happen. They are anti-marijuana. They're still buying into the old BS, government propaganda type stuff. So it's always going to be a rough ride to get items changed and perhaps negatively easier. I think the second thing to keep in mind is this is not about you and about social justice. This is about tax dollars. And so That's what they care about. So, you're always going to have to deal with heavy taxation. I mean, in Washington, standard retail prices are 3.5 times wholesale prices. That's because taxation is 40% of that retail price. And then I think another point, and you may not like this, Bob, but in the eyes of the feds, we are felon, and in the eyes of some of your neighbors and in the eyes of some of your legislators, they look at you as criminals. Again, they're indoctrinated, so you have that whole public safety concern, strong public safety, and I think we all who are in the business are all for public safety and all for adult use only. But there are people who are going to come into this industry and are going to exploit those, and that's going to cause problems and change for us all. You're mentioning Washington, and yeah, Washington's packaging rules change. It seems monthly to me, and they've just made another change, delayed it again. We've lost close to $100,000 in our 5-year history in just packaging changes that are required by Washington alone, throwing away packaging. Wow. And so just be prepared for all that.
How do you prepare for that? we face all the same issues, right? It is, I describe it to people as we're building the airplane while flying with both hands tied behind our backs, right? And we don't have proper business tools on top of that. And people honestly do not have any idea what they're about to face until they get here. And, the hypocrisy around it, the emergency around it, the panic around it, everything about this industry, from the people you're allowed to buy from, the places you're allowed to put your money, the services you can have personally, life insurance, and, don't go out and try to refinance your house because you're not going to be able to refinance your house. I was stating that I was just fired from my brokerage account. So you're in the cannabis industry, you're not allowed to trade stocks in America anymore. So that's coming down the pipeline. But, we've been fired from everybody, from our chocolate supplier to the people who bring our toilet paper. Right? And you look at these people and you look at these companies and you just shake your head. It's so commonplace now. I don't even get upset about it, right? You just water off your back and you just keep moving along because it happens so often and it comes out of left field. And, I find it more amusing now than anything else, but you don't understand until you're eyeballs deep in it.
We had Best Buyers, who's a photographer as Cannabis on Instagram, who's had her account reactivated 9 times. Yeah. And so that's, loss of business and everything else. And then accounts are getting shut down left and right. You're just saying you got kicked out of your brokerage firm. People can't get bank accounts. When you're trying to just deal with employees, that can be hard enough. And when you can't even focus on that because you're dealing with packaging, at a cost of $25,000 a year or whatever, is a lot to deal with when you can't really reallocate your human capital because it's all tied up into some regulatory issue that is hot at the moment. It's tough. So I don't know.
When the state regulations changed that put the child resistance onto the manufacturer instead of at the dispensary level, we had $1 million increase in our packaging cost. Yeah, for 1 year.
Yeah, one thing
hard to swallow. Right?
One thing I want to emphasize on this, and Bob kind of brought it up, but as an entrepreneur, as you move into this in your state, be prepared to have your bank account shut down. Be prepared not to get a mortgage. Don't go apply for a second mortgage to finance it because you're not going to get it. Mm-hmm. Those are just standards. There is no banking, at least on any type of interstate level. And so just be prepared for that. That makes the capital acquisition and, of course, banking and cash management much more difficult. It's just one of the issues.
Yeah, my favorite story is I got a letter from my bank that I'd had for 30 years canceling my accounts. Yeah. Zero explanation. But at the bottom of the bank president's name was a paragraph this long that spelled out every reason why they couldn't discriminate against me, and cannabis isn't on that list, right? So
happened to me.
I look at that type of hypocrisy and go, you know, okay, you were kind enough to tell me all the reasons you can't discriminate against me, but because I'm doing something that's legal in my state, right? And because you choose not to follow FinCEN guidelines, because you can, right? The banks can deal with us. They just have to follow FinCEN guidelines. They just choose not to. And it's just easier for them to turn a blind eye or claim that they can't, when in reality they can. They just don't want to do the work.
Yeah, they don't want to lose their banking charter or their credit union affiliate.
Well, they won't if they follow FinCEN guidelines, right? I mean, FinCEN has laid out the directive on how they can deal with the cannabis space. They just don't want to do it.
Right. Absolutely. So with that, we're going to roll this one up. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is the Talking Hedge. I want to thank my guests. We have Bob Eschino with Incredibles. Also remotely is Patrick Ian Moore with Edibles List and Edibles Magazine. And also here is Dan Devlin with Zoots. Congratulations on the recent acquisition, by the way.
Thanks a lot for having us on and the ability to talk about what we love, edibles.
So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't. And I'm out.